let's get into some stories.
Yeah.
Can.
Okay, so I think the majority of them from the Am I the Butthole subreddit. So this one's by user
Baba Ganoush.
Barbaha.
Papa Ganoush.
Am I the asshole for calling out my wife for going above and beyond at work, but not in our relationship?
Ooh.
A bit of context, my wife and I have been married for over 17 years. She's an executive at a small company and is working a ton of hours, very stressed about the situation. Earlier tonight, I overheard her and another coworker's call that sounded like another complex, stressful situation. I made her a cocktail and brought it to her. It was early evening. I then made a delicious, healthy dinner from scratch for her and the kids, and I also work a full-time job, by the way.
Aww.
We all ate dinner together, and everyone enjoyed the meal and said it was delicious. Towards the end of dinner, my wife said, "I wish I wasn't so driven that I could avoid doing things I don't want to do." I paused, shocked and confused. Some additional background: when it comes to intimacy, the sex with my wife is pretty conservative and very particular. It has been a source of contention. For example, I love oral sex, both giving and receiving, but I haven't had a blowjob or been allowed to go down on her for almost 2 years. And before that, it was maybe once a year at best, not birthdays, Christmas, or any other occasion, period. After she said the comment about wishing she could not do things she didn't want to do in the work context, I said, well, there are some things you don't want to do that you never do. She knew exactly what I was referring to. She completely exploded at me, throwing her wine at me and berating me in front of the kids, saying I shouldn't make it about me and that I'm horrible for not appreciating what I have, etc., etc. I'm now sleeping out of the house, so hurt and angry that I don't want to come home. So I ask you, Reddit, am I the asshole? Okay, sorry for the mistakes. It feels like I'm reading in front of class. And I'm like, so
you're just nervous. But yeah, that's a lot, right?
Yeah, a little bit intense.
What do you guys think?
I immediately have one opinion, is that he might not be the asshole here, but certainly and definitely he's not, in my opinion. But I think he's also like foolish in a way. I'll tell you why. I know, like, this is a judgment that I'm doing, but not a judgment really. Like, foolish in the sense, why I say that there could have been another way of breaking this or having this conversation with the wife, you know, rather than maybe, like, it certainly is the case that this is something that bothers her or something that pokes her, like it hit a nerve in a way. She threw a glass of wine at him, like, you know. So I guess, you know, it goes down to communication. He's not an asshole, but I think there's a lot more to this story. Like, you know, it seems like there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
And I would say that maybe the way he broke it to her, that, hey, like, you know what you said at dinner, like maybe before going to bed or something, that, you know, I actually was thinking that this is not you in this scenario. So I think that's a bit, let's talk about it. I think, you know, that would have been an easier approach. He's definitely not an asshole. Yeah.
You know, I feel like when I was reading it, I was not comprehending anything I was reading. I was just so focused on like not making mistakes. So I'm like speed reading it right now. But I think the issue is, I mean, one thing that Pach and I agreed on, I mean, in case anyone in my family or her family is listening, we don't know anything. But yeah, one thing that we've talked about is that in a relationship, you should never weaponize sex or intimacy. You know, like it shouldn't be a commodity where it's like, well, you know, if you do something for me, I will reward you. Because like that's just it's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, and it's not healthy at all.
So I mean, again, like if for example, if she doesn't want to do certain things, or she's not comfortable with it, I mean, you can't really equate that to like, well, you're hyper performing at your work and you do things at work that you say you don't want to do, but you do it anyways. But then I don't think it's the same. You cannot really equate that.
You can't really compare. Another thing is that this comparison, or you know what this person has done, maybe it's not going to end at only this. Mm-hmm. So clearly, the fact that she's so stressed out at work and that she probably does not have a lot of time, clearly it's something that bothers him to the core. So it would not be super unlikely that he would compare in any other situation that he would bring it up again. That's what I think. But yeah, what do you think?
I think in isolation, it's difficult to even in isolation, it's difficult to judge, because I think there are issues on both sides. Like, I fully agree with Justin that you can't really equate those two things.
Yeah.
It's not fair. And on the other hand, the wife throwing wine at him also
extreme.
isn't nice.
Yeah.
But I think there are a lot of things that are, I mean, it's difficult to judge from just this particular instance. I think there is a build-up. There has been a build-up going on for many, several years right now, and that's why there is no communication. And I think this was kind of one incident that just occurred out of that, because I think things kind of escalated very fast here, and it would, like, again, in isolation, that wouldn't be the case. Like, if this was the first time, then I don't think this would be the case. But I guess they have been having problems for years before, and without really having all the other details, it's difficult for someone like me to judge from just these few paragraphs. So I don't know.
But yeah, like in this situation, like, and the whole thing happened in front of the kids.
Yeah.
That is also something to note here. Like,
I think it's just probably she's stressed out at work, like mainly from that, and then he just blurb it out. It's not the right time, maybe, for her to take like that, but I guess it's also bothered him a lot, I mean, and I think I think in general, like, sex, maybe it's a hot topic, even for a couple or like a marriage couple who would just talk about it, because people can maybe get offended like easily, so it's, the topic itself is very hard to be talking to your partners, like, just
absolutely.
upfront. And now she's just like, wait, I'm stressed out about my work, and now like this, you throw this in the pit, but I think it's also bothers like both of them. I mean, obviously I think she got to notice that he's bothered by that, because that's why she also a bit upset. Like,
I think exactly. So you touched on something super interesting, because it's so complex, and I don't know if this is like a woman thing, or if it is like, universal for whatever you identify as. But like, the thing is, there is like the first moment when she says it, I wish I wasn't so driven that I could avoid. Of course, this is rhetoric. She does not wish that. And also, secondly, is that there is like such a complex feeling behind it. The guilt maybe that is there as well. That also motivates it a bit. Yeah, it's like, isn't like human relationships, especially like marriages, are complex things.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like it was something that's been
build
probably
up.
probably for him, like, this is like something that is bothered him a long time, that maybe he doesn't get what he wants in that sense. And I think the wife knows, and it must be like a recurring topic that she's kind of like, are you freaking kidding me? You bring this up again? Yeah. And I just
because
think,
it says like the wife knew, like she knew exactly what I was referring to, and then she started berating me. So that kind of also leads to the fact that they have talked about this in the past.
Clearly they had this conversation.
Yeah, but I guess this was not the right time to bring this up.
definitely. I think timing is very important. And then, so I mean, I think also when you're in a couples, I've also talked with Pach about this a lot of times. There's times for solutions when you're seeking solutions, and there's time when you're seeking, like, venting, you want comfort, right? So I think she was more, I mean, obviously she's not venting to the husband, or or she's not stressed and looking for someone to come in and like do the work for her. She's just trying to say like, I'm overloaded, and then he comes in like, oh well, you're willing to put in the extra effort for work, but not for me.
But not for the other. But like, I don't know if you guys would agree, or if you have like had that experience, because I did too. There are, and I'm sure you did as well. Like, there are moments sometimes when you are like, when you say something, but there are so many other meanings behind it. And this is the part where, like, or maybe not just meanings, but rather motivations as well behind what you're saying. But you know how they say that, you must communicate with your partner. You must communicate. I feel like this wouldn't happen like in one day, but rather it's like a process, like, I have something in my mind and I'm like, okay, hey, sit down. I want to talk to you about this. But sometimes it's not super easy, especially like, even like topics about sex or intimacy, it takes a lot to get those things. But, it's like, it's part of a habit, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, he's definitely the asshole for, I would say, bringing this up at this point.
Yeah.
But I think the reason why I picked this, I think it's quite clear that obviously it's the wrong timing, but I also think that this kind of issue in relationships, maybe not specifically oral sex, but there is issues with maybe if you are, there's something that maybe you want more from your partner, whether it's like quality time or attention or something. But how as a married couple, how do you guys communicate that in your relationship?
I guess from the
or do you struggle?
Like, there are like some days or some moments that are harder than most. But one thing, and I'm not going to come and say that, oh yeah, that's no worries for us, we just communicate whatever. Yeah, we've been married for a very long time. We've been friends before that. And the whole communicating with each other kind of comes, like, communicating meaning that, okay, what's going on in my head, I'll tell you. Sometimes it happens quite organically or in a free flow manner. I mean, I like don't censor myself when I'm like speaking to him and those kind of things, because I want him to it also comes from the fact that I want him to know or think or experience what I'm experiencing, so that kind of a thing there. But yeah, like, if it's a difficult topic, sometimes I would, like, for me personally, I would like that I need to speak to him about that. I would, but it happened quite hasn't happened in recent times, but writing it out sometimes I'll write letters to him. Like, my notes is full of letters to him every time we have a disagreement or a fight. And the reason, I mean, and sometimes he's like, can I see it? He doesn't see the letters.
So,
really?
Interesting.
Yeah, it's for me to, like, sort of put down whatever that I'm feeling on paper first, because my outlet is always like writing. Writing gives me happiness. When I'm sad, I'm writing, whatever. So, like, and then when I read through it, and then I would think that, hey, this is a bit like illogical, or this is not fair, that thing like that. But yeah, maybe after I die, you can read through those letters. Yeah.
Damn.
It suddenly took a turn. But yeah, like, so I would sort of fix that. But of course, you are impulsive in fights sometimes. You say things like, you're human beings. You say things that probably you regret later on. But in terms of, like, I don't have that filter with him. Sometimes it acts against me as well because of not having that filter, But I think, like, I would say that I sort of organize my thoughts by putting it out on paper, like all the bad stuff to get it out,
A little bit like a stopgap to, like, catch yourself before. But then, okay, so then when it comes to actually bridging that gap between you and Salim, like, how do you guys communicate? Or so you, like, maybe wait a week or... Oh,
no, like, not that long. I would do it immediately because, we've moved on to the next thing, like, but I would like to sometimes, how some people used to don't go to bed, like, angry or don't go to, that kind of a thing. I'm not a huge believer of that, in the sense that, sometimes you can't just, but I do believe in the fact that you should resolve it faster than later. Yeah. But I don't know if you, like, what your approach is.
I think I have to agree with the fact that we usually have no filter.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really comfortable communicating any and everything with you. And I think what really works for us is that I think hopefully we both have confidence in each other that we will be able to change each other's position or mind on topics where, if that's the rational thing to do. For example, sometimes we would argue, and if her argument makes more sense, I would actually be comfortable changing my position or changing my stance on an opinion that I had. Sometimes I wouldn't agree with it, but I will accept it.
Yeah.
And I think it goes the other way around.
Yeah,
so
I think so.
Whenever I bring up something which maybe she initially didn't agree with, she would not be comfortable with, but she would still see my point of view. And also sometimes things are just facts. I mean, sometimes things are just right, and doesn't matter who communicates it, but I think we are quite good at accepting that. And I think as people, over the last 10.5 years, we have evolved as well.
Yeah.
I think we have become more mature as well. So what bothered us 10 years ago, won't bother us anymore. And I think we, in like deep down in our fabric, I think we also get like some change. We have some changes.
Yeah.
We influence each other.
Yeah,
and we
that
have grown
happens.
to a different person together, and more it's merging towards kind of like one singular point where we have a lot of things in common now, and we have a lot of common points of view. So like our conflicts have also gone down because of that.
Yeah, and I think you guys experienced something like that kind of an argument with us where we were fighting. Do you remember in the car?
I hate
Mom
the
and
car.
dad
And
were
like,
fighting.
and we would look at each other like, oh my God, Mom's and Dad are fighting.
Yeah, so that was a while back, right?
What was
Like,
that about? I forgot.
So do you remember, like,
Going
so,
on a trip
just
or
for our
something.
listeners, very briefly, one of our friends, like friends with kids, so they
I
had
remember now.
a birthday party for the child, and they invited all the, like in the friend group, all the people who were who had kids, and the others who were single or didn't have kids, they were not invited. So one of our friends who was single at that time and did not have
Not
kids,
single, but did not have kids,
kids, she was not invited, and she was kind of offended by that, and I was kind of taking her side that I do think that it's a bit weird because it's the same friend group. Salim did not agree, and we actually got into an argument in front of Pacha and Justin. So we've moved like I think 1.5 years from that fight. Almost. We were in September. I think we were in
2 years,
Sorry,
actually.
I was
2.5
actually
years.
looking through my
2 years.
diary,
Yeah.
and like just last week that I wrote it down like, oh, it's like day 10 that we were in Patna.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, I missed
I missed that time.
Yeah.
So like moving 2 years from that time, do I still think like am I of his belief that no, it's actually fine? Even no, I still think that it was weird. Like the single person could have attended, or the kidless person. But I respect the fact that he doesn't feel that way, and I have and that's okay. Like I think,
And it's the same. I still think that it was fine for her not to be invited. I think there are a lot of logistics issues, and I think maybe from the people who were making the guest list, I think they were thinking, wouldn't it be weird? There would be activities with kids, and what would they do? Maybe that was their point of view. I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think it's a deal where you would have to know, like when you were in a different country, you would call up people and then make a big scene out of it. But I respect Sadia's position on this matter.
yeah, like and these kind of things happen quite a bit when you've been married for a very long time. We're like, okay, Amy Poehler actually said something really funny, like in her book, not funny, but like something that really stuck with me. It's like, good for you, not for me, but that's okay.
When you say accepting, Salim, you meaning like it's fair for another person to think differently, and we're
Absolutely.
like happy to listen. Oh, that's
Absolutely.
good. That's a
That's
very
super healthy.
Yeah, I think that sometimes like when I like it so many times like me and Zadevi were bitching around, like talk about work, and she would say, yeah, I told Salim too, and he thinks like this, like it's like three-way communication that we don't have to talk, but we know like check in with like what you think too. But I really agree that like sometimes that you talk to your partner just to rationalize things. You don't need to think the same, but you listening, you have an open minded to listen to like, I mean, I'm not challenging you what you're thinking, but to listen and to hear from another perspective and just like, oh, wait, because maybe sometimes when we get angry or we think about certain thing, it's coming from one side.
Yeah.
And now you listen and you're like asking another person for another opinion. So I think it's fair enough to like listen to the person, and then maybe it's right, and then I mean like for me and Justin, many times that we will be saying, oh yeah, you're right, but not being a sarcastic way, but actually like, yeah, maybe we didn't think on that view, but now when we talk and we discuss, actually that's another way that people could think the other way. Yeah,
that absolutely. You bring up a very like, a lot of the times, and I think it's in you guys' experience as well, that maybe you had some idea about something, and after speaking to her or getting her perspective, you feel a bit different about it. That's also very natural.
Yeah, I think listening to both you guys, I think it's very important, the willingness to be open to changing your mind if you can be persuaded. I know like some couples, maybe they might be like, I'm gonna die on this hill, and like I'm just gonna oppose it unless you agree with me. We're gonna have a fight, or like they're not really have that openness in their mind to like change. And I think that's dangerous. And then another thing was just that also to understand that, you know, your partner or your coworkers are their own people and they have their own thoughts and their ideas, and to also accept that like we may not agree, but that's also okay.
Yeah. You know, it's like absolutely. And I don't want to also sound off like me and Salim from the very beginning it was like that, because it was not. When it was a new relationship, or, you know, when we were newly married even, because we were also younger.
Yeah.
So it was like, I don't know if you agree with this, but like, you know, you hold on to your certain beliefs because you have not experienced the world, or you have not lived that life, and you're like, no, this is the, and then, you know, slowly it sort of like, okay, when you also mature, how you handle these kind of disagreements in a relationship, that also matures.
Yeah.
You know,
It's okay not to agree.
It's okay not to agree.
it's okay not to agree.
I mean, I had one, going back to what you said also about never going to sleep angry at each other. I think I had, I agree with that too. It doesn't have to be like that night, like don't go to sleep angry. But I think what they're trying to say is pretty much like, don't let it fester.
Yeah. Don't let it sit.
Yeah. And I definitely, we've had these couple moments like this with Pacha where, we've had disagreements, or we've had a conflict about something, and then I would get these very negative thoughts of like, oh, Pacha, she's being so selfish, or even that Pacha is selfish, or that she doesn't care about you.
Right.
And I know I would catch myself and think like, I know that's not true because I know Pacha cares about me. I know she's not selfish, but I also don't like that these thoughts are coming in my head. And I think that the longer you kept these thoughts to yourself and you don't get that other voice to say, to kind of negate that voice, then that voice grows louder over time. And I know because this has happened in previous relationships where these thoughts about other people or other people would come into my head, and eventually it's like it becomes a reality where like I don't like this person anymore because I think that they're selfish, you know, and it's not fair because they didn't really get a chance to defend themselves.
It's all happening in our minds.
Yeah,
you know?
So it's very dangerous.
Yeah.
And the lesson that I kind of learned over the years is that anger is also something that you can control. You feel, or you say, or, you know, that's how society kind of teaches you that, oh, anger is something like you can't control. He was so angry or she was so angry that they threw a glass at someone. But I think it is kind of a feeling that you can learn to control better. And I mean, through anger, what you essentially are trying to do is you want the other person to submit to you. So when you're angry, when you're raising your voice, when you're not eating dinner, really what you essentially are trying to do is want that other person to submit to you. And whenever, I mean, even if they do submit to you, that's an empty feeling. There's nothing you gain out of it. Sometimes after they submit, you get even angrier because you want them to now submit even lower now, or, you know, do something even more. So I don't want to be that person who wants my loved ones to submit to me because I got angry.
Yeah.
So it's still a learning process. I mean, I would say that I recover fast. Like, even if I get angry, when I was much younger, I would hold on to that anger for weeks. But now we're talking about an hour, or sometimes, you know, I want to get to zero. It's an ongoing process, but I mean, that's what essentially. And I mean, it's not just like me. There are psychologists who are saying, I mean, this particular concept is from Alfred Adler. I think in Buddhism as well, they say you're holding on to a hot coal for the opportunity to throw it at someone else when you're angry.
Yeah.
So drop the hot coal, basically. So yeah, I guess it's a learning and evolving process which we are doing kind of together.
Yeah. Do you guys ever feel that, you know, the way you look at anger or being angry is different for like both of you, like as individuals in a couple? Like, you know, the reason why I say this, while you think of what you actually do, the reason why I say this is because the way Salim gets angry and the way I have my anger, it's quite different. But as more time passes and the more, you know, the longer your relationship goes, the more difficult conversations that you have. I feel like I still look differently like about anger and how my approach to anger is than him. But I think one thing that converges is the fact that, what he was talking about, that, holding it on and rather than letting it go. So that, yeah. So just curious how you guys is your approach to anger different?
Honestly, I don't think that like when we start dating until like since we start until now, I don't think I get angry at you.
Maybe just annoyed.
Maybe just annoyed. Yeah, I would say I've never get angry at him. I mean, I'm getting angry at workplace, but never at him. But I mean, with Justin, sometimes just being like sometimes like clingy or want attentions or didn't do something right away. I'm like I'm getting annoyed, but not. I'm getting annoyed, but he would see from my body languages. I'm like because I start doing it myself. I wouldn't say it, but when we have a difficult conversations or I'm like, I really don't like this, we would just talk it up front, but we don't really raise our voice at each other. No, not really. I don't think so. Yeah, but I mean,
I don't think I've seen you guys like be that way.
I would do it at work, but like not at home. That's not my persona. But anyways, I don't think that I've experienced any anger in our relationship.
I'm not
yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet.
I'm not the yelling type. I'm definitely the type to keep it inside. I'm holding that hot rock in a sense. But I mean, your friend, who I hope we'll have on the show soon, he asked you, right? Like, do you and Justin ever fight?
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
And then we were thinking about it, and like, I mean, of course, every relationship has conflicts. And I would say, I don't think we fight, but we have conflict. I think the reason why our fights aren't so extreme or like
dramatic fight.
Yeah, they're not like theatrical, is that when we have conflict, it's very like solution focused. So we're both aligned towards a solution versus I know a lot of times when I think we talked about this before, but when we fight, when people say going through a fight, it's like a pretty much like Pacha versus Justin, right? Yeah. And it never feels like we're versus each other. And we're always kind of like, I might say like, I'm not happy about this, about something you did or like something that happened. And then it's kind of like, well, okay, well, what can we do to stop this from happening? Or like, I felt this way and like, I'm a little bit upset about this, stuff like that. And then it's never like, I mean, I'm very lucky to have a partner that doesn't get defensive and she's not like, how dare you feel that way? It's more like, well, I didn't mean to make you feel that way. And then, how can we make sure this doesn't happen again? So
I think like what you just said and what she also said, it's like a mark of a mature relationship.
I was gonna say, I think that because we're with each other when we've been through a lot in life, so the part of like being angry, also like emotional, and irrational, it's past that point. So I think we're always, not always, but I think that we're more solution oriented in a way, and I think that it's just a different stage of like life.
Absolutely. And I also like what he said about, because me and Sam always say this to each other when we're in stressful situations and then kind of like maybe annoying each other in a bit, and I can sense that okay, maybe there's something, or he can sense that, and we would always say that but we're one team. Did we say that? Like, but we're one team. Like, we might have, but the resolution has to be together. Like, we're one team.
I was talking to one of our colleagues, and he was asking this question to me, like, "Hey, have you guys ever like fight?" I'm like, "But what is the extent of fight? Of course, like we have our disagreement, but we would just have like our conversations together." And then I told him that think of like your partner as a team, that you work as a team. And he's like, oh, like a company. And I told him like, yeah, I'm a CEO.
Ooh, if you're the CEO, then Justin is
CFO.
COO. Oh,
I think he's CFO.
Like major shareholder. I think I read something, that was saying, if you're in a relationship and you're looking to win a fight and the other person comes out feeling defeated, then as far as a relationship wise, it's a failure.
Yeah, you're both lost.
Right. If you win, if you get your way, but your relationship is dying, then no one is winning. So,
Yep.
I
just want to clarify to like, people who are listening to us. And of course, it sounds like we have this like figured out, or all four of us are sitting here. We don't. Nobody has it figured out.
Speak for yourself.
Oh, you have.
We don't.
So yeah, like, you learn as you go. But yeah, I guess both of like the common point for both like these two couples, if you is that we're in that relationship in our lives where we're done with the drama.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I picked this as like a kind of warm up, and I didn't think it was going to go this deep. But actually, I mean, yeah, I guess conflict obviously is.
From the listener's point of view, it sounds like you guys have figured it out. I mean, that's what it sounded like. But the disclaimer doesn't sound honest. But yeah, that's
how that has been the experience.
Yeah.
But maybe we can go to the next.
I mean, time will tell for sure. Yeah. Time will tell. Okay, so the next one. Anyone else want to read? You want to read?
No, I don't want to read.
You want to read? Sarah?
I can't see the whole screen properly from here.
Yeah, you want to?
You can or you can't.
I don't want to. Let's
I can read it.
Yeah,
let's
okay. All right.